A lot of filmmakers, when they're first getting into the business or when they first dream up their first idea for a film, have very, very big aspirations, as you should. You've watched a lot of big budget, A-list actor Hollywood films, and that's one of the reasons probably you're so excited and interested in becoming a filmmaker, because you envision and dream about making these big, grandiose films. But when you actually go to do it, sometimes you don't get the financing to do it at the level that you actually want to, or you're not ready because you're still somewhat novice, you haven't made any films. So the first time you make a feature film, it might not be the film that you want to make because you're dreaming of Hollywood style stuff and you might have to start smaller. All right, so let's talk about the difference, say, between Hollywood films, which everybody talks about, and low budget indie films. All right, number one is the budget. All right, a Hollywood film can go anywhere from, say, 25 million to 200 million. I mean, these big, huge, epic movies that they make now with gigantic casts and special effects and everything are really expensive to do. Whereas an independent film, people make indie feature films for as little as $50,000, perhaps sometimes even less, usually not more than $1 million. There's a big difference in how much money you're spending, and you're basically doing the same thing. You're making a full-length feature film. Call it, say, a 90 or 100-minute feature, whether it be a $200 million epic Hollywood film or a $100,000 indie feature film. You're still going to end up with a 100-minute film. But there's a big difference in how much money you have to spend. The second major difference is the level of cast that you're going to get. Hollywood films generally have A-list actors because A-list actors are very marketable to audiences. Indie films would love to have A-list actors. Like, who wouldn't want an A-list actor? It's just generally you can't afford it. Even when an A-list actor wants to make an indie film, they want to do it at a bigger budget level because they want the production to look bigger. And generally on lower budgets, you can't have big production value. You're usually not going to have A-list actors. It's very, very rare. It would have to be some unusual set of circumstances where an A-list actor just is in love with you or your script or whatever. The reason they wouldn't do it is because they don't want to put their reputation at stake to be in too small a film. And even though you're a fantastic filmmaker with a great vision, you just don't have enough money, one, to pay them what they want to earn, even if they're willing to donate their time, or two, create the production value that they want to act in a film of that caliber, that level. So those are the major differences between big budget Hollywood films and indie films. The disconnect comes with all indie filmmakers always think Hollywood. You gotta get past that when you start to make your indie film. All of the podcasts and master classes and everything that I hear on the internet, most of them, they're addressing indie filmmakers, but they're talking big budget Hollywood stuff. It's just, these are two separate businesses. Hollywood is say, big corporations, big public, international, multinational companies. Independent filmmaking, think of it as being entrepreneurs who are running small businesses. That's the difference. All right. So the scope and size is completely different. So if you're an entrepreneur who is going to basically do everything yourself, and that's the other big difference. When you have a big budget, you have hundreds, if not thousands of people working on your film. When you're an indie filmmaker with limited funds, it's you and a team of 10 or maybe 15, 20 at the most, and everybody's doing 10 different jobs. So basically you're an entrepreneur when you're an indie filmmaker. And with entrepreneurs, the buck stops with you. That's what an entrepreneur is. Somebody who takes on a project, they own it and they get to control it. So the good news is they get to make what they want and it's their artistic vision. With that comes the responsibility of having to deliver everything. If something goes wrong, it's your problem. All right. There's no department to run to. There's no other people to go to fix it. There's no more money that's available like there is in Hollywood, in big budget films. You're it. If you're going to become an independent filmmaker, you need to know how to balance a lot of things at the same time. And it can be super overwhelming. I mean, it's definitely challenging, but for a lot of people, it's overwhelming. And that's why a lot of indie filmmakers fail, because they can't manage juggling all of those things at the same time. And there are tons and tons of problems and challenges and other things that come at you that you didn't think of that you have to solve. You have to be creative to figure things out. If you're going to be a successful indie filmmaker, you need to be a really good entrepreneur who is very confident, You might not have all the skills, but you have the ability to think on your feet, to move quickly, to not panic when you have a challenge, to figure out a solution. It's how to figure out solutions to your challenges and how to be strategic in moving forward with the amount of resources you have so that you best utilize them. If you can do that, as I said earlier, the beauty of being an entrepreneur is you get to choose the projects that you want to do. You decide what you're going to make, how you're going to make it, when you're going to make it. Hopefully you make the right choices so that you can actually market your films afterwards. But it's very, very rewarding to be able to do what you want to do and be able to not only make it, but own it. And if it is successful, profit from it. Now, with that is obviously huge risks because everything is in your lap. You're responsible for everything. So if it fails, you basically maybe go down with the ship. And whereas if you're, say, an employee on a big budget film, just doing one job, then if the ship goes down, you go on to the next thing and your life doesn't change much. But again, when you're working on big budget Hollywood stuff, you're not in the driver's seat unless you are the director or the producer or the creator. So one person is in the driver's seat. Even then, the director of a big budget film has a lot of input. And, if you're really, really big on, if you're Tarantino or Nolan or somebody like that, then I'm sure you have a lot more say in what gets made and how it gets made. But how many people are those? So it's very rare. Most people are told what to do and they have to follow orders, which isn't the end of the world because they also don't have to take any financial risk. Hopefully, if, they've got a lot of resources to make things go well, and hopefully it will go well, which will propel their careers to another level. And if it doesn't go well, it might set them back a little bit, but they've had a great experience and haven't really lost any money. Whereas the entrepreneur, it could be disastrous. When you're a filmmaker, you could be career entrepreneur filmmaker who tries to do it on your own, or you can be a filmmaker who works on a big team and basically has great experiences working on films, but not necessarily making their own films. Let's say you want to be the indie filmmaker. I am an indie filmmaker. I enjoy being in control. I enjoy picking my own projects and making them and creating them. If I do good, I get rewarded. If I don't do good, I pay the price. I'm okay with that. I'm very comfortable with that. And that's generally what I talk about in most of my classes and lectures and seminars is just about indie filmmaking, true indie filmmaking. I'm never going to talk about getting big A-list actors, dealing with huge budgets. Every once in a while I'll say, if you get lucky, this could happen. But for the most part, I'm super practical about the level that we're dealing with, like the budget levels that we're dealing with and how to try to be successful at those levels. And then the final thing about the difference between, say, Hollywood films and independent films is, as an independent filmmaker, after you've killed yourself making your film and you've worked so hard and struggled and done everything, and now all of a sudden you have this great film, now you got to go sell it. You got to create, find distribution. You have to do the marketing. Obviously, you can, hopefully find a distributor who helps you. But if not, again, you're responsible for that. It's the difference between success and failure, even on a good film. In contrast, all of the Hollywood studios, all the big budget platforms and studios have gigantic marketing teams that do nothing but sell the films. Whereas you have to wear both hats, filmmaker and distributor/marketer. In this scenario, they have tons of resources, tons of people, tons of expertise. So they have this gigantic advantage in making sure that the films get marketed properly. They also have tons of money in order to do proper marketing campaigns. That's why it's really difficult for independent films to compete against big budget stuff. People just want to see what they want to see. And generally viewers, as much as they want to see good indie films, really don't even know about them because they're inundated with the marketing of the bigger budget films and or series. And it's really tricky sometimes for indie films to even get access to the platforms that are owned and controlled by the big streaming platforms and studios. It's not only about the resources to make the film in terms of people, money, A-list actors, all this. It's also about selling the films afterwards. That's one of the biggest differences because marketing can make a huge difference in the success of a film.